Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. The American Civil War, a time of glory, tragedy, sacrifice, and 1,000 realities the movies never show. Tonight isn't about the generals or the speeches. This isn't Lincoln at Gettysburg or Lee surrendering in a tidy room with polished boots and sad violins. This is about what it actually took to fight. Not lead, not command, but fight. To be one of the many nameless men thrown into a brutal machine fueled by mud, black powder, biscuits, dysentery, and sheer human will. Before we jump into the muck and misery, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments what time it is, where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see the global night owls dropping in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background, and let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey, what it took to fight in the Civil War. You might think of battlefields, cannons, muskets, charging across open fields in crisp blue or grey. But before any of that came, the part no one talks about. You wake up not in a bed, but on the cold earth. You haven't bathed in days. Your boots are soaked. Your coffee is a bitter trickle of burnt grounds in a tin cup. The air smells like gunpowder and unwashed men. Your uniform doesn't fit. Your rifle's older than your grandfather. And your stomach, it's been complaining since Tennessee. To fight in the Civil War meant living in the in-between moments, between battles, between letters from home, between bites of salted pork and the next outbreak of something unspeakable. This isn't a story of medals. It's a story of blisters, lice, spoiled meat, and the sound of distant artillery you pretend not to hear. It's about the men who volunteered with wide eyes and returned, if they returned, with haunted ones. It's about the daily ordeal of being underfed, overworked, and emotionally torn between duty and survival. It's about what it really took, not just the bravery, but the boredom, the hunger, the rot, the loneliness, the staggering discomfort of being a young man with a musket, shoved into a mud-soaked trench and told to hold a line drawn by people miles away. You'll see what they wore, what they ate, how they slept, marched, bled, and broke. You'll hear the crack of rifles, yes, but also the coughs in the night and the gnawing sound of rats in your haversack. And you'll realize something strange. The hardest part wasn't the battles. It was everything else. So, if you're ready, let's step backward in time to the 1,860 seconds and wake up in a world where the war isn't over yet, where your boots are wet, your coffee is cold, and your life is worth less than the bullet in your cartridge box. You're not a general. You're not even a name in a textbook. You're just one soldier in a line that stretches from Virginia to Vicksburg, doing what it takes to fight in the Civil War. You wake up cold, not just shivering, but deep down, bone-stiff cold. The kind of cold that doesn't ask permission. It's crawled into your boots, curled up in your lungs, and settled across your ribs like a wet, miserable blanket made of regret. You're lying on the ground, because that's where soldiers sleep. There's no tent, no pillow, no featherbed, just you, your coat, your knapsack, and a slice of open earth that feels suspiciously damp under your hip. The sun's not up yet, which means you're not supposed to be either. But something woke you. Maybe it was the guy next to you groaning in his sleep, scratching at his lice like he's trying to dig a tunnel home. Maybe it was the coughing, that deep, ragged, rattling sound that cuts through the darkness and doesn't stop, like a campfire of lungs slowly going out. Or maybe it was the cold again, whispering you back into consciousness with its fingers pressed into your spine. Either way, you're awake now, and it's still dark, and you're still here. Your blanket, if you even have one, is too thin to matter. If you're lucky, you've rolled yourself in your greatcoat, the long wool one issued months ago that now smells like damp horse and burnt bacon. If you're unlucky, you're just curled up in the fetal position under the stars, trying to convince your feet not to die in your shoes. You sit up slowly, feeling every ache like it's been personally sharpened overnight. Your back protests. Your knees feel like rusted hinges, and your neck, well, it no longer turns to the left without a vote and a short prayer. Your bed is a patch of mud beside a tree stump. The roots are your mattress. The insects are your bedmates. And your pillow is a rolled-up sack that still smells faintly of the cornmeal it used to carry before you ate it dry 3 days ago. You're wearing everything you own: wool trousers stiff with sweat, a flannel shirt yellowed with old grease, and a jacket whose buttons are in a constant state of negotiation. Around you, other men are beginning to stir. You hear someone curse softly under their breath as they sit up and realize the morning has arrived without improving anything. Another man rolls over and pulls a ratty old cap further down over his eyes. Someone sneezes, then coughs, then keeps coughing. You smell it now. The camp, a thick blend of wood smoke, damp wool, sweat, tobacco, horses, and something less pleasant human waste, maybe, or whatever's been festering in the garbage pit behind the latrine trench. The latrine, by the way, is a shallow ditch in the woods. If it rains again, and it will, that trench becomes a slow, oozing river of regret. You scan the camp, blankets draped over bushes, rifles leaning against trees, a few boots not pairs, just singles left drying on sticks by the ashes of last night's fire. Some men still sleep, wrapped in coats or curled into themselves like punctuation marks. Others are already up, shuffling to the fire pits, where yesterday's coffee grounds are being reboiled into something dark and vaguely flammable. No one talks much in the early morning. It's not that you're all grumpy, it's just that talking takes energy, and no one's found any yet. You stretch your legs and immediately regret it. Your boots are still wet. From sweat, rain, the stream you waded through yesterday during a march that lasted longer than your will to live. You don't know. You just know they smell like something died in them. You slip them on anyway, because barefoot in a Civil War camp is an invitation for tetanus, frostbite, or a nail to the foot, and the only thing worse than getting hurt is having to ask the surgeon for help. The sun is peeking over the treetops now. The light is grey and stingy. You see the outlines of men warming their hands over fire, or kneeling to tie the same pair of broken laces they've been nursing for weeks. One man is using a spoon to scrape mold off his hardtack. Another is trying to thread a needle using twine. It isn't working. Your rifle, your precious, temperamental, black powder best friend, is lying beside your blanket roll. You check the lock, the cap, the barrel. It's still there, still functional, still likely to misfire at the worst possible moment. You ran out of grease a while ago, so now you just spit down the barrel and pray. It's not regulation, but neither is dying because your powder got wet. You stand. Your body protests again, but you stand anyway. You smell the bacon now. Someone's cooking, or more accurately, burning a sliver of salt pork over an open flame. The fat sizzles, pops, flares up. The man curses as his breakfast falls into the fire, which promptly eats it with gusto. He pokes around with a stick and shrugs. 5-second rule doesn't exist here. If it's warm and edible, it's going in your mouth. A drummer boy walks past, maybe 12 years old, his face pale and smudged, carrying a battered canteen. His coat sleeves are too short. His eyes are too old. He's not drumming this morning. The last time he did was before the skirmish in the orchard. The memory hangs in the air, unspoken, like smoke. A group of officers stands near a cluster of logs, talking in low tones. One's holding a map. Another is writing something. Orders, probably. Or casualty lists. You don't bother to ask. You'll hear soon enough, one way or another. In the distance, a cannon booms. Not close, but not far enough to ignore. The men around you stiffen slightly. Heads turn. No one says it, but you all think the same thing. Again? Already? The day has begun, and with it comes marching, drilling, digging, cooking, cleaning, writing letters home, or trying to. You reach into your pocket and find your last letter crumpled and sweat-stained. You haven't mailed it. There's no mail. The last courier was shot 3 miles out of town. You scratch your beard. It's itchy. You haven't shaved in a week. And your last attempt involved a dull knife, cold water, and bleeding. You feel the lice in your collar, and you try not to think about it. Everyone has them. If you don't, you're either dead or new. You'll get used to it. Or you won't. A sergeant walks by and shouts something about lining up. Formation. Roll call. The usual. You sigh. The day hasn't really started yet, but it's already long. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know there's a chance that by sunset, you'll be one of the ones they're burying on the edge of camp, under a wooden plank marked with a name no one remembers how to spell. But for now, you're alive, awake, cold, and still a soldier. This is what it feels like to wake up in the American Civil War. You shuffle over to the fire pit, your boots squishing slightly with each step, and not in a good way. The world around you smells like ash, wet leather, and old smoke, with just a hint of boiled misery rising from someone else's tin cup. Welcome to breakfast. Your stomach is already complaining, loudly, but it's not asking for much, just something to fill the hollow space between your ribs. The problem is, the Civil War soldier's breakfast isn't built to satisfy. It's built to not kill you. Usually, you reach into your haversack, which is just a fancy word for a canvas sack that smells like old biscuits and poor life choices. Inside, you find a piece of hardtack, a square of flour, water, and military indifference. It's dense, it's dry, it's older than some of the new recruits. If you dropped it, it could chip your foot. If you bit it wrong, it could chip your tooth. And if you're not careful, it might already be hosting a small civilization of weevils. You squint at it. A few tiny holes. That's fine. Extra protein, maybe. You bang it against your canteen to knock out any visible bugs, then dip it in the weakest coffee you've ever tasted, hoping to soften the edges. It doesn't help. The biscuit stays as hard as your sergeant's glare. Nearby, a man is heating salt pork over the fire. It's just a thin slice of fat with a whisper of meat attached, sizzling unevenly on a bayonet stuck into the ground. He offers you a bite. You take it. It's chewy, greasy, and so salty your tongue protests. But it's food. You thank him anyway. Your own ration is still in your pack. You pull it out more pork, wrapped in paper and soaked through. It's been 3 days since this was distributed, and already it's beginning to go off. You sniff it. Not great. You cut off the worst parts and hold the rest near the flame, hoping fire will kill whatever lives inside it now. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There's no fruit, no vegetables, no vitamins, no balance. Breakfast is hardtack, pork, and if you're lucky, a little coffee made from reused grounds boiled in river water. Sometimes, if the quartermaster remembers you exist, you get beans or rice. But mostly, it's salt, starch, and sorrow. Someone passes around a tin cup of molasses. You dip your finger in. It's thick, sweet, and gritty, with something that may or may not be sand. Doesn't matter. It's a rare treat. You savor it like a gourmet truffle. Now, hygiene. You'd like to brush your teeth. That's adorable. There's no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no minty freshness. If you're disciplined, You rub a frayed stick against your molars and rinse with a bit of vinegar or ashes from the fire. If you're not, you just spit, hope for the best, and live with the consequences. Your breath could probably fell a horse, and your gums feel like they're plotting against you. You feel the coating of grime on your teeth, the kind that comes from days of bad food and worse water. But no one cares. Every man around you is in the same state: yellowed teeth, cracked lips, and that gritty tongue feeling that says, you haven't had anything fresh in a month. You'd like to wash your face. That's almost funny. There's a bucket of cold water collected from the stream. It's slightly brown. You use your fingers to splash some onto your cheeks. It stings. Dirt runs down your neck and into your collar, where it will stay for the rest of the day. You dab your face dry with a sleeve that's somehow dirtier than your face was to begin with. Bathing? Not unless it rains, and you strip. Some men go weeks without even trying. The smell in camp is less a warning than a feature. It's a living fog of sweat, smoke, and wool soaked in human effort. You roll up your sleeves and look down. Your fingernails are lined with grime. Underneath the black crescents are tiny cuts, old blisters, and more than a few flea bites. You pick at a scab on your arm, one of many, and wince. It's healing crooked, but what are you going to do? See a doctor? Even if you did, the camp surgeon has one tool for hygiene: a rag. Maybe a saw if things go sideways. His instruments? Washed in whiskey, maybe. Used on you and the last 6 guys. If you need a tooth pulled, he'll grip it with pliers and yank while you bite down on leather. If you need something amputated, well, better hope your paperwork's in order. You scratch under your shirt. Lice. Again. Everyone has them. You've given up trying to get rid of them. You just manage them now, like a terrible, itchy roommate that lives in your collar and steals your joy. Your socks, assuming you have a second pair, are damp from yesterday's march. You wring them out and hang them near the fire. Someone else's socks are already smouldering on a stick, forgotten. Burning socks are now a smell you recognize instantly. You find a quiet spot behind a bush. That's your toilet. Dig a shallow hole, do your business, cover it up. It's not dignified. It's not clean. It's just routine. There's a latrine trench dug behind camp, but no one wants to use it anymore. It's too full, too foul, too dangerous. Dysentery spreads fast in these camps. One bad night, and half the regiment's stuck squatting in the woods, clutching their guts, and praying to a god who's clearly stopped listening. You pass a man scrubbing his shirt with river water and sand. It barely makes a difference. The stains are permanent. The smell is eternal. But he's trying, and that counts for something. He smiles at you. His teeth are blackened in places. One is missing. You don't ask. Another soldier pours whiskey onto a rag and rubs it under his arms. Not for hygiene, for morale. He winces. Better than nothing, he mutters. Then he drinks the rest. And this, all of this, is your morning routine. No hot shower, no soap, no mirror, no privacy. Just a handful of rituals you perform each day to trick your body into thinking it's still human. You chew your last bite of hardtack and spit out something you hope was a crumb and not a tooth. You swig the dregs of your coffee. It's cold. It's bitter. It tastes like smoke and iron. You rub your eyes. The day is starting. The orders will come soon. Drill, march, dig, shoot, maybe even fight. You scratch your scalp again. Something wriggles away. You sigh. Just another morning in the war. You haven't bathed in a week. Your breakfast tried to fight you. Your mouth tastes like regret and rust. And yet somehow you're still here. Still standing. Still a soldier. You've eaten your breakfast or what passed for it. And you're now fully awake in the worst possible sense. Your back hurts. Your stomach's half full of salted grease and bitter coffee. And now comes the moment every soldier dreads more than marching. putting your uniform back on. Not that you ever really took it off. You just loosened it enough to pretend you were sleeping comfortably. But now it's time to tighten your belt, shake out your sleeves, and face the daily indignity of wearing the US Army's version of a wool straitjacket. Let's start with the underwear. You probably don't have any. Maybe when you enlisted, they gave you a pair of long woolen drawers, itchy, shapeless, and woven with the enthusiasm of a disgruntled grandmother. If you still have them, they're stained, stretched, and probably hosting lice colonies bold enough to charge rent. Most men just gave up and stopped wearing them. Less fabric meant fewer bugs and slightly less sweat pooling in the unfortunate places. Now, your shirt. It's made of flannel or coarse cotton, cut like a potato sack with buttons. You've been wearing it for weeks. It has two functions: to absorb your sweat and to itch constantly. If you've tried washing it in a creek, good for you, but that only replaced the sweat with sand and gave it a new crunchy texture. If not, it now has the same structural integrity as soggy cardboard. Next, your trousers. Heavy wool. Deep blue if you're Union, dull grey if you're Confederate. Although by this point, everyone's shade is mud. The fit? Random. Some are too long, some too short, some too wide. You were handed a pair by a quartermaster who looked you over once and said, "Close enough." There's no tailoring in the trenches. If they fall down, you tie them up with string. If they ride up, you deal with it. You button them up, breathing in sharply as you suck your stomach past the waistband. The buttons are made of bone or brass. You lost 2 last week and sewed them back on with black thread and quiet desperation. The wool itches. It always itches. Now the coat, your greatcoat if it's cold, or your shell jacket if it's hot. Either way, it's heavy. It hangs off you like a soggy curtain, absorbing rain, sweat, and misery in equal parts. If it's raining, it's already soaked. If it's sunny, it'll bake you like a roast. You adjust it anyway. The army says you must look presentable, even if your boots are held together with string and silent pleading. Speaking of boots, you look down. If you have a matching pair, congratulations, you're in the minority. If your boots fit, you're a unicorn. Most soldiers were issued whatever was available. Left and right shoes were often the same shape. Not distinction, just boot. You broke them in by walking until they either fit or tore your feet open. Blisters? Constant. Bleeding? Normal. If your socks are dry, they won't be for long. If they're clean, they won't be by noon. Some men cut pieces of newspaper to line the soles. Others stuff straw inside to cushion the impact. Some just keep walking on raw blisters, hoping they'll eventually scar over. Your hat, officially called a kepi or forage cap, is limp, sweat-stained, and probably smells like someone died in it. You adjust it out of habit, not comfort. It offers no sun protection, no warmth, and no dignity. But it's regulation. Now fully dressed, you feel like a mobile furnace, held together with buttons and body odor. Let's talk shelter. You walk back to your quarters. That's a generous term. Right now, your quarters are either A canvas pup tent, B, a makeshift lean-to, C, a blanket over a stick, or D, nothing at all. Let's start with the pup tent. It's called a pup tent not because it's cute, but because it's so small that only a puppy would be comfortable inside. You and another soldier were each issued half a canvas sheet. Only together can you make one full tent. Teamwork, right? You snap the halves together using buttons, tie it between 2 sticks, and crawl underneath. No floor, no insulation, just the canvas, the dirt, and whatever insect wildlife has decided to join you. If it rains, the water finds its way in. If it's windy, the whole thing collapses. If it's hot, it traps the heat. If it's cold, It mocks you. Then there's the lean-to, a single canvas sheet angled against a log or tree, open on one side, usually facing the wind, because you didn't realize it until it was too late. Or maybe you just threw a blanket over a rope and called it a day. Some soldiers dug into the earth, building dugouts or scraping shallow pits and throwing canvas over the top to make a sort of human gopher hole. It worked. Unless it rained, then it became a very personal swamp. If you're truly out of luck, you just sleep under the stars. Sometimes there aren't enough tents to go around. Sometimes you're on the march and you're too tired to care. You roll yourself in a blanket and try not to dream about frostbite. Inside your tent, space is limited. 2 men, 1 shared stink. You sleep shoulder to shoulder, boots still on, rifles tucked against your bodies like bedmates. You learn quickly to sleep light. A surprise attack, a marching order, or just a desperate raccoon could wake you at any hour. Your belongings? They're in your knapsack, if you're lucky enough to have one. Inside, an extra shirt, filthy, a pair of socks, holy, a needle and thread, maybe a comb, maybe a photograph from home. Everything you carry, you march with. Everything you sleep with, you smell. There's no furniture, no table, no chair. You sit on logs, rocks, or the ground. You eat on your knees, crouched like a wild animal. You write letters using your tin cup as a desk, your knee as a table, and your memory as your only source of hope. Rain is your enemy. It soaks the tents, floods the trenches, turns your boots into soup pot. It collapses lean-tos, washes away fire pits, and makes you sleep in wet wool, which is the human version of being hugged by a wet dog that hates you. And in winter, you pile up next to other men like spoons in a drawer, hoping body heat will keep your blood moving. You sleep in shifts by the fire. If you have no fire, you just shiver and hope the cold passes before your toes do. Rats? Yes, plenty. They love tents. They love boots. They especially love whatever's left of your rations. You'll wake up with one chewing through your bread or sprinting across your chest like it's late for something. And yet, you adjust. You patch your coat. You mend your socks. You repurpose canvas. You build walls out of mud bricks and reinforce your tent with broken branches. You share fires. You joke. You grumble. You survive. Because in the Civil War, your shelter isn't home. It's just what keeps the rain off your rifle and the wind out of your bones. And your clothes? They're not for comfort. They're armor against cold, against disease, against the knowledge that no matter how well you dress or dig, none of this guarantees you'll see another spring. So you button up your jacket, you tie your boots a little tighter, and you step out of your crooked canvas palace, ready for whatever today throws at you, even if it's just more mud. The thing they don't tell you when you sign up, aside from the lice, the dysentery, the haunted eyes of veterans, is how much work war is. Not the heroic kind, not the dramatic kind, but the endless, bone-cracking, blister-growing, back-breaking kind. You're a soldier, sure, but most days it feels like you're a mule with a rifle. The sun isn't even fully up yet, and already the orders come down. Form up, fall in, grab a shovel. You hoped today might be light. Maybe a short drill, a few rounds of cleaning gear, some bad coffee and idle sitting around. But no, today is a Labor Day, not the holiday kind. The literal kind. First order of business. Dig. Doesn't matter if it's dry, wet, cold, or already midsummer and baking. If the captain says dig, you dig. Trenches, latrines, drainage ditches, rifle pits, or breastworks. Sometimes all of the above. You grab a spade if one's available. If not, you grab whatever you can. Broken shovel handles, spare bayonets, a discarded mess tin flattened into a scoop. The tools are limited. The ground is not. You start carving into the dirt. And it's exactly as fun as it sounds. Your hands already ache from yesterday. Your fingernails are black with grit. You wear holes into your gloves, assuming you had any, and the blisters bloom fresh and red across your palms. You keep digging, no choice. Sometimes you're digging defenses, low mounds of dirt in front of your position, meant to stop bullets. Sometimes you're digging latrines holes for everyone's business, which means you're up close and personal with the less glamorous side of army life. Sometimes you're just digging because a general on a hill a mile away thinks the earth needs rearranging. Either way, it's all the same to your spine. You dig until your back stiffens, until your shoulders feel like slabs of stone, until your legs tremble every time you shift your weight. And when the shovel breaks, you keep digging with your hand. Meanwhile, there's wood to chop. Always for fire, for shelter, for cooking, for makeshift barricades. You take the axe and head to the nearest stand of trees, praying the blade hasn't dulled into a glorified butter knife. You swing, the axe bites. Kind of. You swing again, and again, and again. Chopping wood in a heavy wool coat, with socks soaked in yesterday's sweat and boots 2 sizes too big, is not an enjoyable pastime. It's punishment with splinters. Each swing jars your arms to the elbow. You sweat. You swear. You keep swinging. Sometimes you're building, not just tents or lean-tos, but whole fortifications. Earthworks, gabions, crude log walls. The officers walk the line, giving orders while you hammer crude stakes into frozen soil or pack sod into bags until your fingernails start peeling off. Then there's water duty. You grab the buckets and hike half a mile to the nearest creek, the same one used by every man in camp, plus the horses, the mules, and probably something dead upstream. You fill the bucket. It weighs more than you expected. You stagger back, and when you return, someone spills half of it into the fire trying to make coffee. Go get more, they say. Laundry? You wish. If you want clean clothes, you wash them yourself by hand, in cold water, with lye soap if you're lucky. You scrub them against rocks, your knuckles raw, until the fabric no longer resembles filth but instead looks merely tired. Then you hang them on tree limbs and pray it doesn't rain. Cooking is another chore. Soldiers rotate duties. If it's your turn, that means squatting over a fire with blackened tin pans, stirring beans or frying fatback, while smoke stings your eyes and ash settles into your eyebrows. You serve food, get complaints, then wash dishes in the same creek where Private Evans lost his boot and possibly a toe. And God help you if someone gets sick, because then you're hauling water, gathering firewood, helping the surgeon, holding down some poor soul while his arm gets sawed off with a blade that last saw soap in the last administration. You can hear the screaming 2 tents over. Everyone can. But no one says a word. Let's talk marching, because when you're not digging or cooking or chopping or scraping your knuckles bloody on a log wall, you're walking miles. Dozens of them. Sometimes for no reason that makes sense to you. They call it maneuvering. You call it madness. You wake up, pack everything you own, sling your rifle, throw your knapsack on your back, 40 pounds of awkward, lumpy survival gear, and start walking. You march through woods, swamps, fields, rivers, roads. You sweat. You stumble. You slip. You keep going. Your boots rub your heels raw. Your socks turn to wet sponges. Your pack shifts and bruises your spine. You learn to stop thinking about comfort. Comfort is a city boy fantasy. You think about blisters, rations, and whether the next creek will have clean water or just another dead mule floating in it. Rest? That comes in short bursts. You sit for 5 minutes on a log and immediately pass out. Someone nudges you with a boot time to go. You stand up and realize your legs have stiffened into wooden stilts. You limp along anyway, and when you arrive at your destination, you don't sleep. You dig. Again, you cut down trees. You boil water. You hammer stakes. You build a fire and boil coffee made from reused ground. Then someone yells that pickets need setting. So you grab your rifle and spend half the night pacing in the dark, trying not to fall asleep on your feet. All of it is survival work. It's the labor behind the uniforms, the maintenance behind the myth, the thousands of hours that don't make it into the paintings, the speeches, or the black and white photographs. And this is still a good day because no one is shooting at you. Because the only thing harder than surviving a Civil War workday is surviving a battle. But even without bullets, the war grinds you down. You lose weight. Your fingers split. Your feet rot. Your sweat never fully dries. Your teeth ache. Your eyes blur. Your joints creak like wagon wheels. And yet somehow, you keep going. You patch your socks again. You scrub your mess tin. You lift the axe one more time. You shoulder your pack and march through the muck with a song half formed on your lips and a cough in your chest that won't go away. Because that's what it takes. To fight in the Civil War, yes. But first, to survive it, you're crouched by the fire again, rubbing your hands together and watching the flames dance against the darkness. It's late. Most of the camp is quiet now, save for a few murmured conversations, the clink of a coffee cup, or the crack of a rifle being cleaned under moonlight. And somewhere out there, in the shadows beyond the picket line, someone's whispering a prayer. Religion isn't just something you believe in here, it's something you cling to with the same desperation you'd use to cling to a floating plank after a shipwreck. Because out here, death doesn't schedule appointments, it just shows up behind trees, in a puddle of water, or in a surgeon's tent. So you pray. Even if you're not sure who's listening, you were raised on it. Maybe a dusty little church back home. Wooden pews. Fire and brimstone. The wages of sin is death, said the preacher. And now, here you are, standing ankle deep in wages. You see it in your comrades too. Before every march, someone quotes scripture. Before every battle, someone drops to one knee and mumbles psalms. Before every meal, even the ones where the pork is rancid and the biscuits bite back, someone mutters grace. The words change, but the theme stays the same. Lord, keep us breathing, and if not, at least keep us right. Bibles are everywhere, small, leather-bound ones, torn, frayed, and stained with fingers that have seen too many bayonets. Some men keep them in their shirt pockets near the heart, hoping they'll stop a bullet. Others read them nightly, eyes moving across the pages like they're trying to memorize salvation before dawn. One guy reads aloud every night. His voice is calm, steady, familiar. Doesn't matter what passage, it's the rhythm that matters. It becomes a lullaby in a world full of screaming. He's not a chaplain. He's just scared, like the rest of you, and the Bible gives him something to do with his hands. Others wear crosses carved from wood, hung around their necks with bits of string. Some carry rosary beads. Some just keep a scrap of sermon paper tucked into their boots, folded and faded. It doesn't matter what denomination, Protestant, Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, out here. You all kneel in the same dirt, but it's not just faith. It's fear, deep, primal fear, the kind that makes grown men jump at shadows or wake up sweating from a dream that felt a little too real. Because the Civil War isn't just a war of guns, it's a war of minds. And your mind, well, it's been in the dark too long. You start to notice patterns, signs, omens. If the birds are quiet, something's coming. If the fire burns low for no reason, someone's going to die. If your rifle jams 3 times in a row, that's not coincidence, that's fate. You don't say it out loud, but you believe it, even if you laugh when others bring it up. There's the guy who won't sleep facing west, says it's bad luck. The one who ties a rabbit's foot to his cartridge box. The guy who swears he saw a ghost before the last skirmish, a little girl in white standing by the tree line. The next day, 2 men were shot under that same tree. You don't believe in ghosts, but you still don't go near that tree at night. You start avoiding certain shirts, the one you were wearing when your friend got hit. You won't whistle before dawn. You knock on wood. You never ever joke about making it home. That's how you jinx it. And if you do survive a battle, you count your fingers, your toes, and say a quiet thanks. To God, to luck, to whatever kept the bullet from your throat. Chaplain visits are rare but powerful. He's just a man in a black coat with a small satchel of scripture. But when he speaks, the whole camp falls quiet. He doesn't promise safety. He doesn't sugarcoat the horror. He just reminds you that heaven might still be watching. He leads a small service before a big push. No fancy altar, just a stump and a book. Men gather close. Some sing, some weep. Most just stand with heads bowed, like they're trying to disappear into the dirt. The chaplain talks about sacrifice, about duty, about the kingdom beyond this one. Then you march into hell. And for those who don't believe, they believe in something. Maybe fate, maybe karma, maybe nothing more than the cold logic of survival. But even they'll sometimes glance at the sky and mutter, "Lord, help me," when the cannons start again. Because when your best friend's head explodes beside you, when your boots slip on someone's blood, when you're crawling through a cornfield and every ear of corn is whispering death, you look for something bigger. Anything. Sin? You think about it. A lot. Some of the men try to make amends, writing home to wives they've wronged, promising to stop drinking if they make it through. Others confess out loud in whispered conversations after dark. You've heard things under these stars that no priest back home would believe. A man once broke down, sobbing because he'd stolen a ham from a dying Confederate. Said he heard the man's voice every night in his dream. Another confessed to deserting once, long ago before re-enlisting under a fake name. Said he couldn't die as a liar. Out here, death is so close it listens in. You start believing that your thoughts matter. That if you think something wrong, God might punish you, or worse, punish the man next to you. So you police your mind, walk carefully through your own skull, and try not to think too hard. Then there are the chapel's makeshift ones, a clearing in the trees, a few crates for pews, a tattered flag hanging like stained glass. You kneel, you pray. You feel something, even if you're not sure what. And afterward, you feel lighter, only for a minute, but it counts. Even letters from home become holy. Your mother says she's praying for you. Your sister writes a psalm in the margin. Your sweetheart says she lights a candle every night. You fold the paper gently, like it might break if you hold it too tightly. And maybe it will, but you keep it close, near your chest, where the Bible goes, where the bullet might land, because this is war. And whether you believe in God, ghosts, luck, fate, or just the rifle in your hands, you have to believe in something, or you'll lose everything. It's late afternoon now. The sun hangs low and thick in the sky, painting everything in a haze of orange and gunpowder. The fire pits are going again. The men have finished their drills or their digging. And for a brief moment, a small, fragile moment, the war takes its foot off your neck. It's mealtime. You're not expecting much. You've never expected much. That's how you avoid disappointment. But even a bad meal is still a meal. Something hot, hopefully, or at least warm adjacent. You squat beside the fire with your tin cup and your battered mess tin, listening to the crackle of salt pork frying in its own grease. It smells edible, salty, sharp, and oddly comforting. You'd take anything over the cold brick of hardtack, still rattling around in your haversack like a bad memory. The rations tonight? Salt pork again. Maybe some beans if you're lucky. A chunk of bread that could double as masonry. And always, always a little bit of soot in everything. Doesn't matter what you cook, it's going to taste like smoke and iron. That's just seasoning now. A friend offers you coffee. It's been boiled 3 times already. The grounds are older than your boots, and there's a leaf floating in it that nobody wants to talk about. But it's hot, and it burns your throat in a way that reminds you you're alive. You sip slowly and hold the tin close like a campfire in your hands. Someone pulls out a plug of chewing tobacco, offers it around. You take a pinch. It's strong, bitter, and earthy, but it helps quiet the hunger, or at least distracts you from it. You spit into the dirt and nod your thanks. The beans cook slowly, bubbling in a black pot suspended on bent wire. You stir them with the butt of a knife. The man next to you drops a chunk of bacon rind in, grinning like he just invented cuisine. "This here's dinner and dessert," he says. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because your body remembers laughter. It feels good, feels normal, like something human, something from before. By now, the camp has settled into its night rhythm. Some men are eating, others are gambling. A few are playing cards on their bedrolls with coins, buttons, and promises. A small circle has formed around a man playing a fiddle, the music scratchy and high-pitched but mesmerizing in its own way. It's not a concert, it's a lifeline. The tune is simple, a folk song from someone's home state. You don't know the words, but you know the rhythm, that slow, swaying drawl that wraps around you like a worn blanket. A group nearby sings along softly, voices low and rough from smoke and sorrow. A hymn, a drinking song, a lullaby. Hard to tell. Out here, they all bleed together. Somewhere to your left, 2 men are dancing badly, but with conviction. One is spinning with a limp, and the other's holding a mess cup like it's a lady's hand. They twirl, stumble, laugh, and bow like it's a ballroom instead of a mud-slick field littered with broken boots and burned-out campfires. And for a moment, it works. You smile, genuinely, because this stupid, joyful, tragic moment, this is your entertainment. There's no theatre here, no music halls, no lantern-lit parlours or polite applause. Your orchestra is a fiddle and 3 men who remember enough lyrics to fake the rest. Your bar is a tin cup half full of watery whiskey someone liberated from a passing wagon. And if you want to relax, your options are playing cards until your fingers cramp, whittling a piece of wood into something vaguely animal-shaped, or lying on your back and staring at the stars until your eyelids get heavy. Some write letters by firelight, squinting, muttering, as they scratch out words that won't sound as brave on paper as they do in their heads. Others just sit, chewing quietly, letting the night settle on them like an old coat. You hear jokes, some crude, some clever, some so old they feel ancient. A man tells a story about his hometown. Another boasts about a girl who probably doesn't exist. Everyone plays along. You laugh because the lie is beautiful. And then there's the drinking. Alcohol in the Civil War is complicated. If you're Union, you might have received a whiskey ration early on until someone with a clipboard decided discipline mattered more than morale. Now it comes by trade, theft, or sheer luck. If you're Confederate, you might have access to corn liquor, moonshine, or whatever poison some local apothecary brewed in his basement. Some nights, someone produces a bottle. It passes around the circle like sacred relic. Each man takes a swig, coughs, winces, swears it's kerosene, then takes another. It burns all the way down, and warms the belly like a tiny internal campfire. Too much of it, and the jokes turn sharp. The mood shifts. Someone starts crying, or singing, or both. Someone always sings "Home, Sweet Home," and someone always goes quiet when they do. But the drinks continue, not because you're celebrating, but because, for a little while, you forget where you are. A few men talk about theatre. Some remember seeing Shakespeare back home, real Shakespeare, with a stage and costumes and curtains that moved. Others remember the circus or minstrel shows or the county fair. They talk about it like they're describing another planet. You think of what you miss: real beds, real food, girls in dresses that smell like lavender, music that doesn't come from a man playing with one string missing, laughter that didn't come with the taste of ash. You reach into your pack and pull out your last bit of molasses. You spread it on the corner of hardtack and chew slowly. It's sweet, it's sticky, it's the best thing you've tasted all week. One guy has a harmonica, plays it soft, slow, just a few notes, over and over. It's out of tune, but no one cares. It's sound, it's life. And for a short sacred hour, the war pauses. No marching, no blood, no orders barked in the dark, just warmth, bad jokes, ruined beans, a fiddle, a harmonica, and boys, really doing whatever they can to remember what being human felt like. Because when you fight in the Civil War, joy is a luxury, laughter is rebellion. A spoonful of molasses is a feast. And survival isn't just about bullets. It's about holding on to these moments, however small, however smoky, however fleeting, because tomorrow the cannons might start again. But tonight, you eat, you sing, you laugh, you live, you wake up coughing, not once, not a little dry tickle in the back of the throat. No, this is the kind of cough that grabs your chest like a fist and shakes something loose. It burns on the way up. It sounds wet. It tastes like metal. You sit up slowly, spitting into the grass, hoping it's not what you think it is. You look around camp. Half the men are coughing. Some are worse. You see a man curled in his blanket, shivering despite the heat. His face is pale, lips dry, eyes glassy. He doesn't talk. He just mutters nonsense, over and over. Someone brings him water. He doesn't drink it. He just swats at the air, as if fighting off invisible flies. That's when you hear the word whispered across the camp: typhoid. You don't ask questions. You don't need to. You've seen it before. Starts with a fever, ends in a ditch, sometimes quick, sometimes slow, almost always hopeless. Welcome to Civil War medicine, where the diseases outnumber the doctors, where you fear the hospital more than the battlefield, and where the thing that kills you might be nothing more than yesterday's drinking water. Let's talk about the camp. You've got hundreds, sometimes thousands of men packed into a space the size of a farmyard. No plumbing, no garbage service, no sanitation standards. Just a sea of boots, bodies, smoke, spoiled food, and open latrines. Every cough is a warning. Every fever is a coin flip. Every scratch could be the beginning of the end. The medical knowledge of the time? Limited. Brave, but limited. Germ theory isn't common knowledge. Sterilization is rare. The same surgeon who amputated a leg an hour ago might wipe his knife on his coat and cut into someone's chest next. You don't blame the doctors. Most of them are doing their best. But their best often involves whiskey, a saw, and a prayer. Let's say you come down with something. Your head aches. Your stomach turns. You've got chills. Or maybe you can't stop sweating. First, you ignore it. Maybe it's just fatigue. Maybe it's something you can walk off. But by nightfall, your pulse is racing, you're vomiting, or your bowels have given up entirely. Someone notices you haven't moved. They call for the medic. The medic's just a guy with a canvas bag, a strong stomach, and 1,000-yard stare. He takes one look at you and says, "Get him to the hospital tent." And that's when the real fear sets in, because the hospital tent is a place of last resort. It's not a hospital like you're thinking. No white walls, no crisp sheets. It's a canvas tent, soaked in blood, sweat, pus, and pain. It smells like death, not poetically, but literally. The stench of infection hangs like fog. You lie down on a cot if there's room, or the floor if there isn't. Flies buzz around your face. Rats scurry beneath the beds. The moaning never stops. A man beside you is whispering a name over and over. No one knows who he's talking to. Another is screaming for his mother. You're given a tincture, maybe laudanum, maybe something bitter and dark. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it just knocks you out long enough to stop complaining. You watch the surgeon at work. He's covered in blood, not just from today. His apron is stiff. His tools are scattered. There's a pile of limbs in the corner. No, really a pile. Arms, legs, bandaged stump. One man says he saw a boot still on the foot. No one laughed. The surgeon is fast. Has to be. He cuts, saws, ties off arteries with catgut, and moves on. No anesthesia unless there's enough whiskey to knock you senseless. Most just bite a leather strap and scream. Infection is the real killer. You might survive the wound, the bullet, the bayonet, the cannon fragment, but if it gets infected, and it always gets infected, then your days are numbered. Gangrene is common. Your flesh turns black. It stinks. It spreads. If they catch it in time, they amputate. If not, you die sweating and delirious, calling for people who aren't there. And even if you're not wounded, you're still at risk. Let's go down the list. Dysentery, the king of camp illnesses. Constant diarrhea. Dehydration. Death by degrees. Comes from bad water, bad food, or just being too close to other sick men. Typhoid fever spreads like wildfire. Fever, rash, delirium. By the time you know you've got it, it's already too late. Malaria, the southern gift that keeps on giving. Chills, fever, vomiting, repeat. Pneumonia, especially in winter, when you sleep in wet clothes and breathe smoke all night. It fills your lungs until you drown from the inside. Oh, and measles, smallpox, lice-borne fevers, mumps, tuberculosis, scurvy, gangrene, trench foot, blood poisoning, tooth infections, and parasites. The list is longer than your life expectancy. You'd think hospitals would help. Sometimes they do, but often they just concentrate the illness, like a magnet for death. If you're in a well-funded union camp, you might see a nurse, maybe even someone like Clara Barton or a volunteer from the Sanitary Commission. She'll bring broth. She'll wipe your forehead. She'll whisper kind things. But even she can't stop the rot. And if you're Confederate, good luck. Supplies are short. Medicines are rare. You're more likely to be treated with herbs, folk remedies, or sheer determination. Sometimes that works. More often, it doesn't. So you pray. You hold onto the edge of your cot and whisper bargains into the canvas ceiling. You swear you'll go home and live right. You'll get married. You'll be kind to your brother. You'll never swear again. Just let you live. And sometimes you do. You sweat through the worst. You wake up weaker, thinner, rattling like a dry bag of bones but alive. You blink into the sunlight and realize you've survived. You've earned another day. And sometimes you don't. They carry your body out in the early morning, wrap it in a blanket if there is one, bury it in a shallow trench, mark the spot with a plank or a stone or nothing at all. A friend writes your name in a ledger. Another writes a letter to your mother. The war moves on, but not you, because in the Civil War, death doesn't ask if you're ready. It just waits. In the cough, in the water, in the surgeon's knife, in the night. And the only thing you can do is keep breathing. You think of them sometimes, not often, because it hurts too much. But in the quiet moments, when the fire has burned low, when your stomach is empty, when your boots are off, and your feet are raw and steaming, you think about home. Not just the house, not just the bed you used to have or the meals you used to eat. You think about who's still there, your mother, your wife, your sister, maybe your daughter. If you were a young father before all this began, you wonder how they're managing, because back there, on the other side of the smoke and the slaughter, the war still goes on. Not with bullets and bayonets, but with firewood and laundry, bread ovens and empty chairs. And in many ways, that war is just as cruel. Let's start with the women. They didn't ask for this, but then again, neither did you. When you marched off with your fresh uniform and your jaw set with duty and fear, they stayed. On the porch, in the fields, in the kitchen, watching you disappear into the distance with a hand raised and a knot in their throat. Now they do everything. Run the farm, tend the garden, chase down runaway livestock, chop wood, carry water, sew clothes, nurse the elderly, educate the children, keep the books, pay the taxes, read the casualty lists in the newspaper with shaking fingers and a silent prayer. Your wife used to bake bread with soft hands. Now they're blistered, rough, split at the knuckles from hauling wet laundry, grinding cornmeal, turning the soil over and over with tools that were never meant for her shoulders. Your sister used to braid her hair and sing in the evenings. Now she milks the cow before dawn and checks traps before breakfast. Your mother, she doesn't talk much anymore. She just stares out the window. The mail is slow. Sometimes it never arrives at all. But when it does, those letters yours, if you've managed to write, are lifelines. Read over and over again until the paper frays, smudged with tears, tucked inside Bibles, or sewn into dress hems. When they write back, they don't tell you how hard it is. They say the harvest is coming along. They say the baby's growing strong. They say, we miss you, but never, we're falling apart. But you know the war has changed them too. And not just in the north, not just in tidy union towns with ladies in bonnets organizing aid societies and folding bandages in church halls, but in the south, too, where women face burned farms, empty pantries, dead fields, where Union soldiers have passed through and sometimes never left, where money is worthless and salt is more valuable than gold. Southern women write in diaries pages of rage, of loss, of disbelief. One wrote of boiling her own wallpaper for the glue, just to make soup for her children. Another wrote of sitting beside her slave, both crying for different reasons, both watching a fire burn what little they had left. And the children, you think about them too. You remember what it felt like to be small, to sit on your father's knee, to tug at your mother's sleeve and ask when dinner would be ready, to run barefoot through fields and laugh at nothing. But the children now, they don't laugh as much. Boys become little men overnight. By 12, they're helping plough. By 14, some lie about their age and enlist. You've seen them. Drummer boys with eyes too old for their faces. Partridge bearers with trembling hands. The war doesn't care if your voice hasn't changed yet. If you can hold a rifle, you can die. Girls grow quiet. They fetch water, tend siblings, learn to cook and sew and patch clothing that's been handed down 4 times already. They write letters to fathers they barely remember. They watch their mothers weep behind closed doors. Some become orphans before they even understand what the word means. Some never make it past childhood at all. Disease doesn't skip over the young. Fever doesn't care how small the grave needs to be. And when food is scarce, guess who eats last? But the worst part, the part you can't shake, is knowing they're growing up in a world that feels like it's falling apart. You wonder what they'll remember. Will your son remember your face? Will your daughter remember your voice? Or just the empty chair at the table? And while you worry for them, they worry for you. Mothers pacing on porches, wives waking from nightmares, little girls watching the road, waiting for the mailman with a letter that never comes. Some women take on even more. They join aid societies, they raise money, they sew uniforms, they sneak supplies through blockades, they tend the wounded in hospital tents and railway cars, wiping blood off strangers and whispering kindness into mangled ears. Some disguise themselves as men and join the fight. They bind their chests, cut their hair, march alongside you unnoticed, fight and bleed and die, their secret buried with them. You heard about one once, a boy from Pennsylvania who took a bayonet to the stomach. They only found out when they went to bury him. The captain never spoke of it again. And of course, there are the women who wait. The fiancés, the sweethearts, the girls back home. They write letters filled with hope. They tie ribbons around locks of your hair. They keep your picture by their bedside and whisper your name before they sleep. But time is cruel. Letters fade. Other men come home. You don't. Some wait forever. Others remarry. No one judges. Not openly, at least. Because everyone understands that war eats more than soldiers. It consumes families. Devour mariage. Tears holes in the human heart that never quite heal. You think of home more often than you admit. But you don't write everything. You don't tell them how bad the lice are. You don't tell them how cold it was when your friend died beside you. You don't tell them what your hands look like now, cracked, filthy, bloodied from digging trenches all week. You just say, I'm fine, because that's what they need to believe. And some part of you still hopes it might be true, because if you survive, if you somehow make it through this hell, it's for them, the women who carried the burden you couldn't, the children who deserve a world without gunpowder and graves, the family you hope still waits at the end of the road. So tonight, as the stars rise and the fire burns low, you write. You hold the pencil tight with fingers that can barely bend, and you write something simple. Tell the children I love them. Tell Mama I'm still marching. Tell her I'll come home. And maybe, just maybe, you will. The heat settles into camp like a heavy coat you can't take off. By mid-afternoon, your sweat has gone from a trickle to a full-body flood. Your shirt is plastered to your back. Your boots are squelching. The air hangs thick with smoke, horse manure, and the kind of body odor that only comes from 300 men eating beans and boiling alive in wool. And still there's work to do. Maybe it's picket duty. Maybe another round of digging. Maybe you're hauling ammunition crates or chopping wood for a fire you won't be allowed to sit near. Whatever it is, it's brutal, endless, and made worse by the fact that you've already been working since dawn. And then there are the fights, because eventually everyone snaps. It starts small, a shove at the water barrel, a curse over a burned ration. A man accuses another of stealing tobacco. Another thinks someone shorted him in a card game. Words fly. Then fists. Then boots. Sometimes the officers break it up. Sometimes they don't bother, because discipline is stretched thin. Your sergeant is tired. Your lieutenant hasn't bathed in a week and smells like regret. The captain's lost 3 companies to dysentery and is just trying to write clean casualty reports. No one's in the mood to babysit a fistfight over a can of peaches. But the tension is always there. North versus South is only one kind of battle. There's more. Rich versus poor. Town boys versus farm boys. Free men versus immigrants. Volunteers versus conscripts. Black troops versus white officers. Because underneath the uniforms and the slogans and the flags, this army is still a mirror of a divided country. Let's talk class. You're a farmhand from Indiana. The man giving you orders is a lawyer's son from Boston. He wears a tailored coat. You wear one stitched with the thread you had to trade coffee rations to get. When he yells at you for standing crooked or not saluting fast enough, something burns in your chest. You want to scream, "When this is over, I still won't be invited to your table." But you don't. You just swallow it. And then there's race. If you're a white soldier, you've probably heard stories about the colored troops, the USCT. Black men in uniform, drilling, fighting, dying. You might admire them. You might despise them. But either way, they're here. And they're proving themselves every day in a system built to doubt them. Their pay is lower. Their rations are worse. Their officers are always white. And if they're captured, they're not prisoners. They're property. Or worse. You've heard what the Confederates do to captured black soldiers. You try not to think about it. But sometimes at night, when the stars are out and the tents are still, a black soldier from a nearby unit walks past your fire. He nods. You nod back. You both say nothing, because there's no need. You're both wearing the same dirt, marching through the same hell, and bleeding the same blood. Now, let's talk about justice, or lack thereof. In theory, the army runs on rules. In reality, it runs on whoever's giving the orders that day. Stole something? That's a flogging. Deserted for 2 days? That's a branding or worse. Fell asleep on sentry duty? That's a court-martial. Sometimes even execution. The punishments are brutal and often public. You've seen it. A man tied to a post with his shirt ripped off. 20 lashes from a belt soaked in water. Another marched through camp with a sign reading, "Thief," hung around his neck. Another sentenced to wear a barrel, just a barrel, cut open at the bottom, arms sticking out like a cruel joke, paraded in front of laughing men for hours. And once worse, a man caught deserting a second time. No trial, no speech, just 3 men, 3 rifles, and one final command. You couldn't eat that night because you saw the blood, you heard the prayer, and you watched the camp go silent in the echo of the gunfire. But even obedience has its cracks. You've heard grumblings, men tired of marching in circles, men who haven't been paid in weeks, men furious that the officers dine on canned peaches while you chew on raw hardtack and scrape mold off your salt pork. You've seen mutiny, small, quiet ones, a refusal to march, a bayonet lowered a little too slowly, a sarcastic remark that draws laughter and a slap from the lieutenant. And God help you if you mention the word peace. That's treason to some, hope to others. But for you, it's just a fantasy, because the real battle isn't just between North and South. It's between survival and collapse, between duty and despair, between the man you were and the soldier you've become. Because you've changed. You flinch at thunder. You dream of screams. You feel nothing when you hear someone sobbing in the next tent, and you can't remember the last time you looked at a tree without checking for snipers. You don't cry anymore. You don't hope out loud. You don't write, "When I get home." You write, "If." And yet you endure, because somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, there's still something in you that refuses to quit. You help the man next to you lift a crate. You share the last of your coffee with the guy who lost his brother last week. You trade your dry socks for his bit of tobacco. You say goodnight even when it's not, because you're all still here, still marching, still breathing, still fighting not just the enemy, but everything trying to turn you into something less than human. And that is its own kind of victory. The light dies slowly. The sky bleeds from orange to ash, then to charcoal, and then it's just gone. No more outlines of trees, no more silhouettes of tents, just shadows and noises and the feeling that something's watching you from beyond the firelight. Night in a Civil War camp isn't quiet. Not really. It groans. It breathes. It hums with life and unease. You hear coughs, snoring, footsteps crunching through leaves, someone dragging a log, someone whispering, a match striking in the dark, flaring briefly like a warning, and in between it, all silence. Deep, pressing silence. The kind that makes your heartbeat feel like it's shouting. You sit by the fire, with your mess tin resting on your knees, staring into the flames. They flicker and bend like dancers too tired to finish their routine. Around you, other men settle into their routines, rolling out blankets, checking rifles, muttering half-finished prayers. You wrap your coat tighter around your shoulders. The night air cuts like a blade, damp, heavy. The wool of your uniform offers little protection anymore. It's too soaked with sweat, rain, and old blood. You wish you had a better blanket. You wish you had anything soft. Even just one clean sock to rest your head on. But comfort is a foreign language here. Tonight, you sleep with your rifle. Not beside you, on you. Muzzle down, barrel against your leg, just in case. Because darkness is when it comes. The fear. Not the adrenaline-fueled panic of battle. This fear is quieter, smarter. It waits until your eyelids droop, until the fire dies low, until the only sound is your own breath. That's when your brain begins its nightly work. It replays every scream you've heard, every face you've watched go still, every time you almost died and didn't, every "if I had stepped left instead of right," every "why him and not me." Your mind becomes a gallery of ghosts. You close your eyes and see them: the boy from Tennessee with the jaw blown off, the sergeant who laughed at breakfast and bled out by lunch, the stranger you held down while the surgeon cut. You remember the man who bled out beside you whispering, "Tell my wife," and then forgetting her name. And just like that, sleep becomes a battlefield. But even worse than the memories is the waiting, because you don't know if tomorrow brings rations or rifles, marching orders or mortar fire. You don't know if that sound in the woods is an animal or a scout. You don't know if you'll die in your sleep, a bullet in the night, a knife in the dark. You've heard stories, everyone has, of soldiers killed while sleeping, of pickets strangled before they could sound the alarm, of camps burned in the dead of night, screams rising with the smoke. You try not to think about it, but you do, so you sleep in shifts, or don't sleep at all. Some men stay up talking, trying to outlast the night with stories. Some chew tobacco or sip from hidden flasks, hoping the burn will dull the dread. Some carve wood with dull knives, the same shape, over and over again. A face, a cross, a bird with broken wings. Others just sit, staring, eyes glassy, minds somewhere else. Then there are the fires, the unlit ones, because sometimes you can't even risk a flame too close to enemy lines, too open, too exposed. The officers say, "No fires tonight." So you huddle in the dark, knees to chest, sharing body heat with the man beside you, both pretending it's not terrifying to be so vulnerable. You listen to the wind, to your stomach, to your heartbeat, to the slow rustle of a raccoon or a rifle being shifted gently in the dark, and worst of all, the silence. Because silence can mean safety, but it can also mean they're coming, and sometimes they do. A pop, a flash, a scream, and then chaos. You've been through it before, rolling out of your blanket, scrambling for your rifle, barefoot, confused, shaking, heart punching against your ribs. Is it real this time? Is this the one? And even when it isn't, when it's just a false alarm or a scared sentry firing into the trees, it still takes you hours to come down from it. You lie there afterward, wide-eyed, staring at nothing, listening to every breath, every twig snapping underfoot. You know most of the time it's just animals, but what if it's not? The truth is, night makes everything worse. Your blisters ache more, your cough deepens, Your hunger sharpens. Your thoughts get louder. You think about your mother's voice, your sister's laugh, the way your kitchen used to smell in the morning, the way your bed used to feel soft, dry, safe. And then you remember what the surgeon said yesterday. He died in his sleep, never even woke up. And somehow that terrifies you more than the thought of dying wide awake. Because at least if you're awake, you can fight, you can run, you can scream, but in your sleep, you're just meat wrapped in wool, waiting to be claimed. Eventually, exhaustion wins. You lie down, boots on, coat pulled over your chest, rifle in hand, and drift. It's not sleep. Not really. It's something between unconsciousness and surrender. You dream, but it's not good. You dream of thunder that sounds like cannon fire, of blood on your hands, of names you can't remember and faces you can't forget. You wake up gasping, look around, still here. The fire's burned out, the night is deep. A single picket walks the perimeter, his silhouette a dark smear against darker trees. You close your eyes again, whispering to no one in particular, "Just let me wake up one more time." Because in the Civil War, death doesn't come dressed in drama. It doesn't arrive with music or speeches. Sometimes it just walks quietly into your tent and sits. And by morning, you're gone. Just another name in a ledger, another body under a plank, another letter waiting to be written. And yet, you're still here for now, and that's enough. The stars are still out. The fire has burned low, just a faint orange pulse in the ashes. A few embers rise like fireflies and fade just as quickly into the black above. Around you, the camp has gone still. The whispers have stopped. The scraping of boots and clinking of tins has faded into memory, and for a moment, it almost feels like peace. Not because the war is over. It isn't. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But tonight for you it is. You've walked through every hour of a soldier's day. You've carried the weight, eaten the food, dug the trenches, held the rifle, watched the light die over the horizon, and wondered if you'd live to see it rise again. And now, it's quiet. You lie back, the canvas of your coat still wrapped around your shoulders, the sky a velvet ceiling stretched overhead. Your body is sore, your clothes are filthy, your face is drawn, but your heart is still beating. That's something. That's everything. And as you settle into the stillness, you begin to realize just how much it took to fight in the Civil War. It wasn't just the battles. It wasn't just the charges, the volleys, the cannon. It was the rest of it. The cold, the hunger, the fear, the silence after a friend dies, the ache in your knees after 30 miles of marching, the ration that smells slightly off, but you eat it anyway, the letter you never got to send, the name you etched into the butt of your rifle just in case they needed to know who to bury. It was the boredom that gnawed at you for days, and the terror that struck in 1 second. It was the lice, the frostbite, the coffee boiled from reused grounds, the salt pork with more fat than meat, the endless, choking smoke of campfires and rifles. It was the way your body became a tool worn, cracked, and reshaped by necessity. It was the way your mind split itself into two people, the one who could still laugh and the one who kept count of the dead. You didn't get medals for that. There were no parades for surviving typhoid or building breastworks in the rain. No one wrote poems about hauling water 3 miles uphill in the dark. No ballads about sleeping in a trench with rats gnawing on your rations. But that's what it took. That's what it took. And now, as you lie here, just you, the sky, and the faint rustle of wind through trees, you let it all go. The weight, the sounds, the faces, you let it fall away piece by piece, like a uniform unbuttoned at last. Because you've come back to the quiet world, the one where the floor is solid, the one where the air doesn't smell like powder and blood, the one where you get to sleep, truly sleep without boots on, without a rifle in your hand, without the question of, will I wake up, echoing through your skull, and you begin to feel something unfamiliar. Gratitude. Not just for survival, but for softness, for warm beds, clean socks, toothbrushes, running water, the hum of an electric fan, the feeling of privacy, a door that closes, a room that's yours, a night without fear. It's strange, isn't it? The things you forget to be thankful for, you think about them now with a slow, quiet awe. The fact that you don't have to boil your water, that your food won't make you sick, that your fingers are clean, that your breath doesn't fog from cold inside your own home, the fact that no one is trying to kill you today, and you sigh not from pain, not from exhaustion, but from something softer, relief, because no matter what the day brought, it's over. And you're safe. The Civil War was real, the pain was real, but now it belongs to memory, to pages, to stories whispered by firelight. You got to visit, but you don't have to stay. So now, let your mind go quiet. Let the tent fade. Let the mud dry. Let the rifle slide from your shoulder. Let the ghosts go. The fire's gone out. The morning is still far away. And you're here in this bed, in this time, in this quiet, where it's warm, where it's safe, where the war isn't coming for you. Not tonight. So tonight, as you drift off, remember this. You don't have to march tomorrow. You don't have to fight. You don't have to dig. You don't have to wake up on frozen ground or listen for footsteps in the dark. You don't have to sleep with your boots on. You're home and the war is over. Sleep well.